All right, we're back with We Want Winners, the post-game show from the 49ers against the Broncos. Now, the reason why we weren't up last night after the game is my fault. I had to cover the UFC show for the Wrestling Observer Figure 4 online website. So Rod said he could do it Sunday. This is kind of a normal slot for us anyways. So that is why we are here on a Sunday. And for those listening on the podcast on a Monday morning instead of right after the game. So Rod, before we go into our, the folks who kind of jumped out at us in a good way and then also in a bad way, what was your takeaways from the differences between game one of the preseason and game two?
Well, it seems like, obviously the offensive line in ways um was better. There was still, as we move on, we'll discuss some of those issues, but overall it was better. Just blocking up front. So that helped. I think the quarterback play was vastly better.
Yes.
Um, Brock came in, did his thing. Um, That wasn't bad. He didn't put many points on the board, but I don't know how much of that had to do with him. And then again, Trey started a little slow, but then I mean, I thought, and again, as we move on, I thought he was the best of the quarterbacks. I mean, obviously, Brock was in a small sample size, so Trey and Darnold played more, so there was just more of them to do. There was nothing you could say bad about what Brock did. There just wasn't a whole lot of it. So in my ranking of what the quarterbacks did, he was last, but not because of any fault of his own. He just played very little, and there was more of those other guys to kind of judge. But all of them played well, I thought, which is a great sign. So those were the things, and then another real big takeaway is that Ronnie Bell continues to be a revelation as a seventh round pick. I mean, again, he had problems too, but overall, I mean, he is he is vastly more than what I would have thought he would have been at this
Yeah.
point in camp. And it looks like I don't know how much we'll end up talking about Danny Gray, but with Danny Gray and Ray Ray looking like they definitely won't be here for the first quarter of the season.
Is that a collarbone
Looking like
injury with Danny Gray?
they said that was I was watching with my uncle, and that's what he thought it was.
Oh, that's a tough one.
He said initially he thought he broke his collarbone, but it turns out it was just a sprain, according
Okay.
to David Lombardi. So, he's saying broken collarbone. You're looking around week 8. With this one, they say they're still doing testing according to what Lombardi said that Shanahan said, which is third third party hearsay, I guess. Um, but according to Kyle, they're still doing tests, but it's definitely not a broken collarbone,
Okay, that's good.
which is a good thing for him. But it looks like um obviously 1, 2, 3 are Debo, Ayuk, and Jennings. But after that, I guess Willie Snead is in there.
Yeah.
Ronald Bell is in there. Um, but yeah, it looks like he's gonna. Point is between
What
receiver and special teams, it looks like Ronnie Bell is gonna have a pretty significant role for a um seventh rounder, maybe because Kyle Shanahan also said, according to Lombardi, that it's possible that our returner is on another team right now. So
Interesting.
yeah,
That's
so
actually really interesting because it's
yeah,
kind of what we were talking about in the Discord over the week, which is the idea that cut down day is essentially one day, right? It's
right.
not the way that it's been historically done, which is you make cuts and you cut down week after week. It's literally like there's a date and you got to get your roster from 90 whatever to 50 whatever, and it all happens on one day. So you're going to see so much movement when those cuts happen because there are rosters who are going to be eyeing that because the people on other rosters are better than the people on their rosters right now. And for the 49ers, it's more of a riches kind of thing. It's kind of like, this person might be better than the last person on our roster, and maybe that is worth it to go chase somebody. So that's going to be really interesting because we were talking about it, like kind of wondering, like, before someone hits the waiver wire, do you go, hey, we'll send you a 7 next year for this person because we don't want to, we will rather trade for him than try and risk this waiver system of getting him. So that's pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Because I mean, because for those who don't know, the way the waiver system works is if you have less than 5 years vested in the NFL and the team waives you, you are subject to waivers. If you are a vet, 5 years or more, if they waive you, you are immediately a free agent.
Free
So
agent.
you can sign wherever you want. But if you're waived and you're not, then you go. There's a waiver system in there. For those of you who play football, fantasy football, the waiver system is kind of like that. In that, depending on your record, you have a descending, from the worst team to the best team. That's where you're slotted in waiver order. So the 49ers would have a bottom waiver order
Yeah.
in most cases. So if there's somebody you really want and that, I mean, and this is a very, very closed shop in terms of um, personnel people. So if you like somebody, you have a pretty good idea if there's somebody else who's eyeing them up. And in most cases, that team is going to have a better waiver position than the 49ers. So if you got somebody, you see somebody you really, really like, I mean, and John Lynch is shown to be pretty, um, you know, he's been very shrewd, and you can do things with
Yeah.
future seventh and sixth and seventh round picks and whatnot. So if you want to really go be aggressive and get somebody, I think those late picks might be in play this year more so than they have been in the past. It's going to be interesting because you got two things happening. You're going to have you're jettisoning people off your roster, and then the games that get played with that. If you've watched how that has happened in the past, where you're hiding guys and you're putting guys on lists as um, IR and all those lists that they're eligible for, so that you don't lose them just out to the market. And then there's going to be this whole thing of trying to acquire talent and then see how that all, and then make it all into a cohesive roster. So it's going to be more fascinating than I think it's been in many years. So this is, something else we'll have to talk about in that 3 week gap, or I guess it'll be 2 weeks from the last preseason game to the first regular season game.
Our guy, Rick Feinberg, is checking us out. Shout out to Rick, one of the most valuable people in our We Want Winners community here. So here's the thing, too, and this is a gamesmanship kind of thing. Let's say the Cowboys show an interest in one of these guys, and the Niners know that, and it's like, oh, um, I'm thinking of some team in the AFC. Oh, Jaguars. By the way, we have this guy who we'll trade. We'll do a little trade because we don't want him to go to the Cowboys,
Right.
right?
And then
There's
you just bringing that up, then you got this whole other field of possibilities. Hey, I don't know, for 49ers, like, we've got linebackers, lots of linebackers. Hey, you need a linebacker. You've got offensive linemen that are going to be cut potentially, and we have a weakness there. Where are there potential trades where I can send you this linebacker for this offensive lineman? And it's not about picks, it's just, you're trading players at that point, which kind of sucks for the player because obviously in a perfect world, you want to be able to pick where it
yeah,
is you're going to be able to go. But if you don't have, which that's kind of, if you're not vested, then that doesn't really apply to you anyway because
right.
you waivers. But I guess as a vet, that would suck if you got traded rather than released because you'd prefer to be able to pick your landing spot. But so it goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that part of it to be an interesting thing, and maybe some of that happens, maybe a lot of it happens, maybe none of it happens because, like we
Yeah,
said,
exactly.
this is kind of the
We don't
first thing,
know.
so
It's
we'll
all
see
new.
what happens. All
Hmm.
right, let's talk about the folks that kind of jumped off the page in a good way. And I mean, you named the first guy who came to my mind is our guy BBD, aka Ronnie Bell. He,
Hmm.
he did have the fumble that he picked up. He also had the ball hit off of his face mask, which was a laser beam from
Again,
Darnold, which turned into an
again.
interception. So those two things sort of made it so that it wasn't a perfect night for him, but everything else that he did overshadowed even the Darnold pick, I thought. And man, he is showing he's showing like Debo's a one of a kind, right? But like he's showing some of the things that Debo does really well, and I did not expect that from him, knowing as a seventh round pick. And even our buddy Shelvin says he's not going to sneak onto the practice squad. He's got to
Mm-mm.
make this
You
team.
you can officially forget that.
Yeah.
That's not gonna happen. And again, shout out to David Lombardi in his reporting. He if you check it out, his article, he interviewed a lot of the rookies after yesterday's game, and Ronnie Bell was one of them. And in one of his answers, he shouts out Debo as somebody who was kind of taking him under his wing, and he says, he's kind of patterning his game after Debo in terms of being balanced and staying low and getting those yards after contact, and it's showing some. So yeah, it's definitely he is in a position where you can forget about trying to hide him. You're either going. I mean, he's like I would. He'd have to really poop to bed next week to not make this team, I would think.
Yeah. Another one of our folks in the chat says that he's like he made the team. HR said he made the team after last night. I sort of feel like he made the team after the first game.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
Exactly. I believe
all right,
you.
who else? Who else stood out to you?
Um, I've got mine divided offensive defense. So we said three apiece. So um I gave Ronnie Bell. So I'm gonna go defense on
Mm-hmm.
mine for this next one. And I'm gonna go D Winners.
Mm-hmm.
He in a group that has really shown out with Flanagan Fowles playing pretty well. McQuarrie Ball has really been a standout all camp, really, in terms of one of the linebackers, and spot for in that spot opposite um, Greenlaw and Warner. He has really shown out. But D Renters, they talked about him around draft time. There's this little site that they kick out comps to different players, and his was Dre Greenlaw, and he has shown a lot of that ability all through camp. And then yesterday, it was really out there on tape. It was really great. He was really good. So that I again linebacker, we were concerned. Some of us, I was concerned. I'll put it like that. I'm not gonna say we. I was concerned in what we were gonna do with Al because he was more than just a third wheel. When Warner went out, he showed that he's not at Warner's level, but the fall off was not, precipitous.
Mm-hmm.
He was a very, very good player. And it was just concerned who was going to be able to step up, and to get that from a rookie is, very promising.
So what is the story with Burke?
I know he was injured. I'm not sure what the injury it is, but Lombardi said he's supposed to be about it back out at practice tomorrow.
Okay.
So
Okay. Good.
yeah, but
Um.
I don't even know where he mixes in anymore as a starter. I would think it would be either Fowles or McQuarrie Ball. I don't think that Winters, even after yesterday's performance, has necessarily vaulted into a starter position, but I think he's in the mix, and I think he definitely is. I would, I'm putting everybody on the team. I think he's made the roster already. I don't think he doesn't strike me. He doesn't profile from what I've seen in camp and then in of him in the games. He does not profile as a practice squad player to me.
All right, so I'm just gonna bring up both QBs here because I thought both QBs played well. Now, Darnold had some of his bigger plays taken away from him because of penalties. I think there was a shot to Jennings. There was like a 20-yard play that they had to bring back.
That was a great throw.
He also had you talked about Shanahan saying that the returner is maybe not on this roster. I wish he would have said that about the second team offensive line. He should have said the entire second team offensive line is not on our roster today because Sam Darnold, he didn't have it as bad as Trey had it last week, but he had it pretty bad. And he, some of the throws that he probably could have made were a little rushed. I know he got crushed on one, but I thought Sam played great. And I also thought, Trey shook off a rusty first few plays. He threw the interception, which I think he kind of got baited into throwing that one by the defense. But he was able to show stuff that we've been wanting to see for him, the ability to step up in the pocket, the ability to create some space with his legs and then just unleash fastballs. He even got crushed on one that was a shot down the right sideline to Leteau. And it was just a little bit underthrown. And I think Leteau said that
He should have caught it.
he took the blame
It was a poor adjustment.
Yeah,
Yep.
he didn't come back far enough to get it. So I thought both QBs played well. The Trey love and the Trey hate is very polarizing. Like I like to look at this stuff from as base of a scenario as possible. Like I just want to look at it from okay, what's the black or white here? But the national media wants to say that he's a bust so badly that they didn't even really talk about the good plays that he made. They only wanted to talk about that interception. And the home crowd wants him to succeed so much that he just gets cheered like crazy. I'm in the middle. I want to see it for what it is. Obviously, I'm rooting for the guy. I've been rooting for the guy since they drafted him. But it's really hard to have, I would say, an unbiased opinion on Trey because all of the opinions around us are so biased. So I wanted to sort of take it because, what would be great, and this unfortunately is probably not going to happen, but we got to see Brock with the ones, and that offense just moved right down the field. They didn't get in the end zone, but Brock was doing Brock stuff, running around and going the wrong direction and having to reverse field.
He looked great.
And it was fun. It was the same Brock that we had last year. I would love to see Trey with the ones. I also want to see Darnold with the ones. I wish we could run computer simulators to see how those guys would do too, because, there's so much talent on that side of the football, and Brock does fantastic with it. I'm sure Shanahan could call certain plays with Trey and then certain plays with Darnold that he doesn't really call with Brock. And then Brock runs some plays that he wouldn't call with those other guys. It's just kind of crazy that you have three guys that I want to see play with this number one team offensively. But I really liked what both Trey and Sam did yesterday.
The thing that not to toot my own horn, because I've talked a lot about Trey, and I make no secret of the fact that I am Team Trey. Not to the exclusion of everybody else. So it's not like I'm rooting against Brock or I'm rooting against Darnold or hell, I'm rooting against Brandon Allen. I would like all of them to play well because that's what puts us in the best position. And I don't feel the need to poop talk the other guys to prop up Trey. I mean, if Darnold plays well, he plays well. If he plays better than Trey, he plays better than Trey. What I don't like you mentioned, is how, especially the national media, who at this point I don't even listen to anymore because you can just tell there's always subtle things with the national reporters that just tells you that they aren't really in tune what was going on here. Does Swagoo know more about football in general than I do? Yes. But does he know more about San Francisco 49er football in 2023? No, there's no way in the hell.
And
If he is covering nationally, that he can pay attention as closely to what's happening here as I do. It's impossible for him to do that
yeah,
for 32 teams.
yeah.
It just you just can't do it. So I have pretty much dismissed all of them, especially you also kind of get dismissed if you never mention in like it's all bad. Like everything that Trey does is bad. He has no redeeming qualities. That's just irrational. So you have to, I've gotten to the place where I just have to pick who it is I'm listening to and just kind of vet it and go from there.
And here's the reason why I think local beat reporting is so valuable, because when the 49ers play another team and I want to sort of learn more about that team, I don't go to NFL.com necessarily. I go
Mm-mm.
to whoever their beat reporter is, whether it's in the Athletic or whether it's in some of these random newspapers that still exist, because I want to see what the guys who cover that team every day talk about. And which is why it is so valuable for us, Matt Barrows, Matt Mayoko, Lombardi, even though Lombardi
Mhm,
at sometimes is more editorial than or than beat sometimes.
mhm.
But it's so valuable to have guys who understand and are really good at their job, because us as fans, we learn more from that perspective than from what this national story is now. And the reason why ESPN is going to keep playing this video of Trey's interception rather than the touchdown play or getting the team down at the end is because for clicks and for views, for the type of stuff that they do, Trey Lance as the number 3 pick in the draft, in which the Niners traded 3 picks for, as a bust is a better hot take than Trey Lance, the number 3 pick who the Niners traded 3 picks for, is a backup. They would rather him be the bust that gets cut because it's a bigger story. Now, they don't want to see the guy out of a job, obviously, but for their audience, Trey Lance, the 49ers cut Trey Lance is a better story for them than for him just being the backup.
Yeah. There is this is such a rich topic. You said 3 things. You said there are 3 different things out of what you said that, I have real strong thoughts about. But like you say, we need to realize as fans that the time in history, if that time ever really exists, because I think we existed, I think we, tend to there's a nostalgia with the past. But in today's world, these talking heads, and I don't mean that necessarily pejoratively, they are here for the clicks, likes, and shares. They are not really here to be dropping signs or telling us the right or wrong of a thing. So do I really think that Dan Orlovsky really believes that Joe Montana isn't one of the top 5 quarterbacks in NFL history? No, I don't believe that, but I know him saying that on NFL Live had him trending for 3 days. So, I mean,
You know what
that
else
but
had
that's
him trending is when he stepped out of the back of the end zone. And
right.
then and
So,
then when
but I
Jimmy
mean,
did it too.
but that's the game though. So he's just playing the game. Like you say,
Mhm.
it's more of a splash to say something outrageous like Shady saying he doesn't belong to be in the league, or he didn't have quarterback instincts when he dropped out of his mama like Lombardi said. Those things are for the media that we're in today, um are what it's about. Another thing before I we go on to the next thing, I think it's interesting, and again, maybe my Trey bias is showing here, that if we're talking about these 2 guys, Darnold and Lance, being equal, I think it's fair to mention that one of them has 55 NFL starts, one of them has 4 NFL starts.
Mhm.
So if it's equal, as I saw today or yesterday, the more Trey plays, which I've been saying all along, the more he plays, the better he gets.
Yeah.
Which kind of duh. I mean, it makes sense. He just needs reps, live field reps. And I understand he's being coached by Kyle Shanahan for 3 years. He's been being coached by Greasy for a year. And that's all well and good. But it makes sense to me that no matter how much he's been coached to do the right thing, being put out there in positions to do it in live action versus other teams and other players. I don't, and I'm not here to get into whether it was first string or third string or none because when you only have 125 pass attempts in the NFL, none of that matters. The reps are what matter. No matter who they're against, the live reps are where you're going to get better. So now again, he was able to feel it. He got into the rhythm. He made some plays. He can, or even last week where it wasn't really that great, he's able to go back. They're able to coach him up, and he's able to go out there and do it again. And then it was better this week than it was last week. And so that is what we should be expecting from Trey is constant progression. Now we're about to get to a point in the season where he's not going to get any live reps, and he's probably not going to get many practice reps either. So it's TBD on his development because it's going to be the Brock show from the first half tomorrow on. Because apparently,
He's going
according
to
to
do a lot
Lombardi,
of mimicking the other team's
right,
quarterbacks.
right, so according to Lombardi, he hasn't made it official, but Kyle kind of hinted in his press availability today that the starters will probably play close to a half next week. So Brock is probably going to get an extended run, and then there will be again with Trey and Darnold trying to fight for scraps, and then poor Brandon Allen. It doesn't like he probably might not get any more
Yeah,
run. So
what was his reasoning on joining this team?
it really doesn't mean because he was two on an AFC
Yeah.
championship um contender last year. So I mean, say what you want about him, and was he's not there's nothing spectacular about him, but he's clearly a competent NFL quarterback. And as I've said to people all off season, there's no way in hell that there's 96, 95 players in 95 quarterbacks in NFL better than him. So he's definitely, if not, I doubt that there's 64 that are better than him. So he's not a number two. And with new rule changes, making it doesn't really make any sense for a team not to have a third quarterback hanging
Hmm.
around. Just so they don't end up signing Josh Johnson in December. He's definitely not going to be a practice squad player. He's definitely an NFL quarterback. So like you say, but that makes him coming here kind of a curious decision, unless him and his team were operating under the assumption that Brock might not be ready.
That's kind
Um,
of what Papa said about Darnold. Like the idea behind Darnold was, well, we have no idea what Brock is going to be like for the next year. Like we really need a fail safe here, someone to compete with Trey just in case. And so, sort of the same thing, right? Like the just nobody knew about Brock, so you wanted to stack as much talent as possible so that you didn't have the same situation as last year.
yeah, and before we move on, I'm not gonna lie, I was livid at Greg Papa's clearly better than Trey Lance comment in regards to Darnold, but he walked it back this week, and
Mhm.
in talking about the new media, he admitted that he misread. He had no idea that this situation was so newsworthy that something like that would make the news that it made. And it creates an awkward situation because he said he doesn't have anything against Trey, but that comment puts him in a position where it makes it seem like He does.
He's the
And
lead broadcaster on the for the team, and the lead broadcaster is also your truth to the fans. Like the broadcaster is there to tell you what you are seeing, or if you're listening to radio, what you cannot see. So there is a value of a truth statement whenever Papa talks. So when he does get sort of conversational, and then people take what his maybe his real thoughts versus what should be the how he should talk about this as a lead broadcaster. Of course, like that, people are going to run with that. Every blog possible is just looking for content, and they're going to listen to a Tim Kawakami podcast. They're going to listen to you on a broadcast in week 1. And Tim Ryan, who I kind of shaded last week because I don't really like him as a broadcaster, but also I feel he is basically saying what the company wants him to say, that the team. And he did walk it back a little bit. When Trey came into the game on Saturday night, he said, Papa said, look, the stats say X. What was on the field doesn't back up what the stats say. And then Tim Ryan said, yes, he struggled with the 4 sacks. But let me be clear, that was also the product of the offensive line, not solely his fault. And that's what I took umbrage with him last week, which was him blaming the entire thing on Trey when it was clearly an offensive line issue as well. So they both had to walk it back this week.
So it wasn't just me that I noticed that the tone and tenor and in regards to Trey Lance was different with both of them. And Papa even mentioned that, and he should know better. I don't know how long he's been doing it.
Since the mid 80s, he's been doing, broadcasting in the NBA.
He's been doing it long enough to know that in his position as lead broadcaster, he is sort of a mouthpiece for the 49ers. And when he has a 5-day-a-week radio gig that's not that gig, and he's out there just spewing his talk radio opinions, that's fine for him to have talk radio opinions. But people are going to assume that he is speaking with some sort of inside knowledge, and that if he's down on Trey Lance, it's because he knows something that we don't. When he clearly has it, he so much as admitted that his opinions are his opinions and don't necessarily. It's not like he talked to Kyle Shanahan and that's how he formed his opinion. He goes out there and watches like I would or you would, and he formed his opinions. And then he gets on the radio with Lund and talks about it 5 days a week. But like you say, he's got another job, and that other job just happens to be the play-by-play host or play-by-play broadcaster for this football team, which, like it or not, or rightfully or not, gives what he says some sort of gravitas.
So
because it doesn't mean that he knows. I mean, what I've known, because I listen to Brent Musburger and on down the line. So I know that just because they hold that job doesn't mean that they know anything about what the hell they're talking about. So I'm not under that illusion, but a lot of people do give what he says credence because of his proximity to the team.
There's been a change in sort of how this works too, because I can remember all the way back to like 1997 when Bob Fitzgerald got the Warriors job, which was Papa's job, and he came in at a lower price, and the Warriors like, hey, okay, well, we'll bring you on. And Bob has been the voice of the Warriors ever since. Now, back then, if I'm remembering this correctly, KMBR had an issue with Bob becoming the lead broadcaster because they did not want Bob's 3 hours on their station to just be Warriors PR, right?
Right.
So it's changed because it doesn't seem like the station cares as much, but some of that is also because, ratings are down and radio is kind of, a dinosaur these days. But
or also, I mean, in this market, if you're going to talk 3 hours of Warriors any time of year, that's probably not a bad
Yeah, yeah. But for Pop, if he is going to have a take on the 49ers and KMBR is a 49er station, they're not, it's not just Papa the broadcaster. They're able to create content around the station on, you know, little packages of what Papa's saying, because he is a very valuable person and they have him on KMBR. You want to hear the opinions of the lead. So it's just that it's just changed so much from, you know, back in the day when I was a very young person, you know, looking at getting into radio. Just the ethic, it's not even an ethics thing. It's more of like a strategy thing in what you want out of these folks. So it's, you know, it's just different from what I remember, but they, you know, there, he does have to be a little bit more careful, maybe a little bit less Brett Favre gunslinger, and, you know, pull it back just a little bit until, you know, this situation is figured out. But you and I are old enough to be able to go back to, you know, KMBR and all the radio and everything when it was Joe versus Steve. Nothing it will ever be Joe versus Steve ever
Never.
in our lifetimes ever again.
You know, it's so funny how I've seen people in some. I spent a lot of time in these, too much time in these 49er Facebook groups, and there have been several posts that wisp nostalgically about the um the harmony between Steve Young and Joe Montana. And it's funny because anybody who was there knows that it was none of that. That there were team factions. They didn't really care for each other. Eddie and Bill didn't see eye to eye on much of that. It was never as clean as some people would like to make it out to be. And social media just makes it a lot different, you know. So we didn't really, if it wasn't for like you know, Lowell Cone and um Rado and those guys giving us, you know, pulling back the curtain and showing us, you know, where any of those dysfunctions, we didn't really have any access to it like we do now. Or sports talk radio, I guess, was kind of, I guess, our social media of that time, where we could get on there and you know, vent. But that didn't live anywhere. You know, if I got on 560 or 680 and ranted about what I felt about Joe Montana or Steve Young, it never went any further than that. That was just, if you weren't listening at that particular time, you know, it didn't register anywhere. So it
Yeah.
wasn't like there was this collective conscious of, like you said, if you go back, if you just put Brock Purdy into a Facebook chat or a Twitter search, I mean, you know, I don't recommend doing that, by the way. But if you do that with for any of those quarterbacks, you're gonna have all manner of opinions
Yeah.
all over the spectrum in a way that just wasn't even possible
I
in 19, you know, 86-ish or
Yeah,
whatever.
I've mentioned this on a previous show that we've done, but it was probably 87 or 88. My buddy invites me to his Church of Latter-day Saints or whatever,
Mhm.
and because Steve Young was speaking, and
Mhm.
you know, I wasn't going to join his church, but I was definitely going to go hang out at the church if I could see Steve Young talking. This is before Steve got the job, and he told this story about he in Montana. And the first year that he was in San Francisco, Montana invited him over for Thanksgiving dinner. And as he is introducing himself to the Montana family, young children, one of the daughters said, "Oh, Daddy, is that the guy that you hate?" while,
Oh,
while while
snap!
while they're at the turkey
Out of the
dinner, you
mouths
know,
of
and
babes.
yeah, right. So you know that there was
Ah,
most
that's awesome.
there was mostly just competitiveness there, and To Joe, I'm sure it looked like Steve was trying to take his job, and to Steve, I'm sure it looked like I desperately want this job. Who doesn't want the job of QB1 of the 49ers? So, there was never going to be kumbaya. Like you see Brock and Trey, seemingly they are like really, really good friends. And, so if it was maybe if it was 88 49ers, they would actually not be the greatest of friends. But anyway, let's get back to what we were talking about. Do you have another player who stood out to you in a good way?
Well, you did quarterback. So I guess I'm just gonna go ahead and stick on the defensive side because we did Lance. Um, I have Jennings too. Would have been my number three on. Well, actually, never mind. I got a couple of others on offense, but I'm gonna go defense. And Quantrez Knight, that dude, he jumped off his measurables jumped off the page last year, but he just didn't play enough really to stick and was on the practice squad all last year. But that dude for a speed guy, he'll come up and hit you too. I mean, he is a really, really intriguing prospect. I liked all that I saw from him yesterday. And I've always kind of liked his package. So it's gonna be interesting to see um how this DB thing shakes out because you look around now and although he played pretty bad yesterday. Ambry Thomas did, but
Yeah.
that the combination of moving him outside and moving Demo inside to nickel um seems to be like there's money there. And then I don't know what that means for like Womack, who played really well again yesterday. Oliver, man, and my man is struggling. He has just not been very good. But you figure, I don't know. I mean, which he struggled so bad that I don't even know if being Wilkes's guy is going to be able to save him when you've got so many of these younger guys for whom it just makes more sense to keep a younger guy over an older guy, even if you have invested money in them. As we saw last season with Suddy, that the guaranteed money really didn't matter when it came down to it. It just made, even from a financial standpoint, if it's equal, if you feel it's equal, which um, the revisionist Kyle says that he knew that Brock was the best play quarterback on the team. But anyway, I'm not even gonna go into that. But even if it's equal, even if you've paid Suddy this 2 million guaranteed, Brock being on a $1 million deal over the long term, it just makes more financial sense
Hmm.
even to keep the younger guy. So I think Oliver might find himself in that place, although as we kind of saw with Womack, with all of them, with Demo, with Thomas, and with Womack, that counting on rookies is kind of a rookie looking good early and then falling off is kind of par for the course. So
Yeah.
maybe Oliver hangs around because he's healthy and he's got experience, and maybe whatever the hell he's dealing with, he's able to kind of work through and play better. But I don't know. He has not. He's all through camp and in the first two games, he has not looked good. And Womack and Knight were both on my list of defenders who stood out to me.
So Oliver is one of the ones on my negative list, probably on yours as well. And
Mhm.
and that was the question was, is it bad enough that not only, that nickel job is in jeopardy, but the in jeopardy of even making the team. It comes
Man,
to that thing of where like, okay, like, we have this guy, he's a vet. He's not going to make our roster. But who needs a nickel who doesn't currently have one? And that could go back to what we were talking about with the
mhm.
machinations of how you create that roster. But yeah, it's two tough ones in a row for him. And you would hope, because there's only one more game left. He's only got one more opportunity outside of the practices, of course, to really make his stamp. But you would also kind of think, and you've been saying this the whole time, is that he's Wilkes's guy, and that still does mean something. It absolutely 100% does, because Wilkes has been through the hard times with this guy before, and he probably knows him better than anybody.
Yeah, I mean it's a tough thing, but it really is interesting that we have gotten to a place where, for years and years, our DB room, especially our cornerback room, has been a source of consternation. But we've got a lot of young, talented blood in there, and it would not shock me that if we were sitting here 6 months from now in our end of season review, hopefully after a Super Bowl, and that unit, you know, be somewhere on the list of the most impactful units on this team. The safety's right there, the DB, I mean, those guys are really good. And I think our cornerback room has a chance to be really good, especially with Steve Wilkes. And we haven't seen a lot of it, obviously, but in camp, he's going to have those guys blitzing a
There
lot.
there were some. There were some
Yeah.
yesterday that
And when you,
that were
and
nice.
yeah, and when you put, in the big elephant in the room, which we're going to talk about, I think, according to the show notes at the end, you drop Nick back in there,
Yeah.
that makes all of that a whole lot more impactful when you're not just blitzing because you need to you need those guys to generate pressure, when that's a luxury, when you're getting push from Armstead and Hargrave and Nick and then whoever else, and then you add on top of that safety and corner blitzes. I mean, this thing has the chance of being a really, really scary situation. And I think we can be really good. I think we can be better than we've been, which is saying a lot.
All right. Who else on your positive list before we move to more of the negative?
Well, I'm okay. Since we've done that, we've done all mine on the on the defense side. So I'm gonna go Debo. Debo looked real good. PFF had as the top graded offensive player on our team, and he really set the tone with that. That little route combination that they used to open the game. Those type of routes are going to be there all year for all those guys. They're one of the, not it's not Debo related, but I posted a question on a few sites on um what do you think the chances are, what are the chances of CMC having 95 to 105 targets this season?
Hmm.
And just like anything, the conversation varies. But my point is, if you just look at just the running back routes, screens, swing passes, wheel routes, check downs, that's going to be a cheat code for Brock in terms of, and we already saw it last season. He had 7 targets a game last season. So 6 point something or whatever. Um, that extrapolates out to 102, and he's never had under in any season that he was healthy, he's never had under 100 targets. So because that's just stealing, it's stealing money. And then you've got that with all these guys. The way Kyle is able to open guys up, Brock is going to be just throwing darts to open receivers. And so I just think everybody, Debo on down the line, this is going to be a feast for them. But the question becomes, do we have enough pass attempts for everybody to eat the way they want to? I've heard people talk about having 30 to 35 pass attempts a game, which I guess sounds nice, but
That's not really
it
Kyle football, though.
it's contrary to all the numbers that say all the stats that when we rush it 25 to 30 times, it's like we win like 80% of the game. So if we're throwing it around 35, 40 times, I think it means because we are, behind
Behind.
a whole bunch. And I don't think that, something's gone horribly wrong if that's the case. So I just don't think don't think that I don't think game scripts are going to allow us to get much over 25 passes a game. Um, but that would be plenty enough for us to win a whole crap ton of games.
Oh yeah. We got to talk about the special teams.
Oh,
It was Moody missing an extra point. It was short kickoffs.
money
It
mid.
it was money making Mitch like just hitting some ducks. Um, it was Deshaun Jameson fumbling on a punt return. Uh, that is like you can sort of tell by the way Kyle talks about it in the media. Like the special teams is just something he doesn't want to have to worry about. He's just
Hmm,
like, I'm running this high powered offense. We got all these defensive players. We have such great athletes. How come we don't, we're having these troubles now? Obviously, second game of the preseason, so this is not like the what's going to be actually when they play. We know Mitch is going to be fine. Mitch is a good punter, but the Jake Moody thing 2 weeks in a row does make you worry a little bit because the one thing we didn't have to worry about over the last few years is Robbie Gould being an inconsistent kicker. Now, not going to kick it out of the end zone. He's not
mm-mm.
going to hit you 50 plus, but you get close enough and he's money and you don't have to worry about it. And so far, we're having to worry about Jake Moody.
It's funny, that when you watch those guys in camp, because I had, of the 9 days I was there were 3 days where, as I kind of laid out to those who I talked to in the group, and I might even said it on the show, they're practicing on two fields. And 3 days we got the punters and the kickers at the field on the field closest to us. And you watch those guys. I mean, you want your kids to grow up to be kickers because those guys are over there throwing the ball off the goalpost. They're trying to drop kick it off the goalpost. I mean, you want to talk about just over there chilling. But what I will say about which is not a good look if things are going bad.
Yeah.
But what I'll say about both of those kickers, Moody and Mitch, Moody is a freak. I mean, he kicks the ball so freaking hard and so high. I mean, it's noticeable. And Zane Gonzalez is a good NFL kicker, but I mean, it was like the difference between night and day. But there were several times with Mitch when he got back out there because he was out early. There were a couple times when he was out, they were using the jugs gun for all the punt stuff. And there was a couple times when he came back that he was kicking it so high and far that you couldn't tell the difference between man, was that the jugs? I mean, his leg is incredible. But then for him to come out there yesterday and he's just kicking ducks. It was, it's got to be like you said, it's got to be frustrating for those guys to even be an issue. You stay over there,
Yeah.
and then when I call you out here, you do your job, and then you go away, and just don't talk to me, or I don't want to hear about you until I need you. So I don't want you fumbling, snaps. I don't want the kicker. If the kickers and the punters are news, something has gone horribly wrong.
We got it. We got a comment from Fable JVC, and I'm not even gonna double check this. I'm just gonna go with this as the truth because I want it to be the truth. He's talking about the GOAT Justin Tucker. Said Justin Tucker went 4 for 8 on field goals in preseason, his rookie season. So if you're giving me stats about the GOAT kicker as it pertains to my kicker, I'm just gonna go with it
Right,
and
right,
Jake Moody's going to be as good as Justin Tucker. That's
right.
what that statement means
Exactly.
to me.
1 + 1 = 2. So yeah, exactly. I'm rolling with that.
Thank you for the comment. Um, now Jameson, who is a defensive back, and we just got
Mhm.
done talking about the defensive backfield. It would seem that having that extra skill of returning kicks and punts would give him a leg up to possibly make the team, but also fumbling a punt is like worst case scenario,
Not
and
good.
yeah, I feel really bad for him because I mean, in not in this like oh, woe is him kind of thing. But like the
Mhm.
opportunity, and then you flub it like that in a game, and 2 games where the mistakes are there, and
Mhm.
and I'm sure really, really frustrating. But at least Ronnie Bell can then go on offense and he can catch 7 balls and he can
Mhm.
for over 100 yards, and he can sort of redeem himself that way. For Jameson as a defender, he's not able to redeem himself as easily. So it felt really bad for him, but he's going to be on the bubble, I think, right?
And it's funny. Tim Ryan was talking about the special teams coach coaching him up on just getting the ball and going because he has this tendency to try to um find a lane or want to go backside and realize he doesn't realize how fast the NFL is because
Yeah.
at Texas he was able to with his athleticism just kind of allow things to develop and then go get it. Like man, you're gonna get earholed out here standing around trying to pat your feet, waiting for something to happen. These dudes are coming way too fast for that. You need to go get what's there and then get down because these guys are coming hard and fast. This is not the Big 12 or whatever the hell, wherever the hell you came from.
All right, who's on your list here? Who else is on your list?
It's a trio. And I know I talk way more about offensive linemen than most people care to, but that is, in my little funky coaching career, that's where I coached, and it's kind of my baby. So to give you guys a peek behind the curtain, when I'm watching the games, I'm recording them, and when something bad happens, I'm able to bring it back and figure out to have notes for you guys, with the linemen and what happened on what plays. Being able to rewatch the game this afternoon and not have a show, I was able to, kind of do deep dives into what was happening across the offensive line. So my 3 guys are Leon Watson, um, John Feliciano, and Jake Brendel. Um, our center position is a problem. I'm just Jake is just kind of small for me. He's just not the kind of center. Coming off Alex Mack, he's just not my cup of tea.
Hmm.
But he did a serviceable job last year, and that's great. He wasn't good yesterday. And Mr. Feliciano, he is a veteran, and he's done a lot of average work in this league, and he's supposed to be our swing interior lineman. He's been putrid. So those guys uh, are. I would not again. I said it last week, and I'll say it again. If we're going to keep 9 or 10 linemen, it would not be surprised. It would not surprise me if all up to 3 of those guys are not currently on our team. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just we don't really. I don't believe. I don't think it's a hot take to say that we don't have 10 NFL caliber offensive linemen as we sit here today. Jalen Moore was better, which was I mean, it'd have been hard for him to be worse. Um, so that's kind of a positive. Matt Pryor was actually I'm gonna give him a shout out. He turns out after I rewatched last week's game, he was not as bad as I thought he was overall. He had a couple of really rough reps that kind of um jaundiced my whole view of his performance. But overall, he was not bad. And he backed that performance up with another solid performance. Um, Still really hasn't played on the left. Um, so that kind of is still up in the air. If you're going to be a swing tackle, you can't just be the right tackle because if
Right,
Trent
right,
gets hurt,
right.
you know,
And that
he
that
needs to
that's
be
the
a
one thing. Uh, Good old Vern Glenn on the sidelines is interviewing Trent, and they're putting up his age, and I was like, "Dang, this guy's 35,
yeah.
and he's still fantastic."
Hmm.
But 35 and shaking injuries isn't
Yeah.
like
I mean,
27 and shaking injuries. So it just like it's flashing in my mind, which is that the 49ers are so talented on skill positions and on defense. Trey might be the most valuable player on that squad when it comes to who can you not lose?
It gets pretty bleak pretty fast if we lose Trent Williams for any length of time. I mean, McKivitz has been surprisingly good as a pass blocker. I didn't realize, I guess because I ain't really, I'm not gonna lie. I haven't watched much Clinton, Colton McKivitz. I remember when he played, but I wasn't really paying attention to that dude. But he's a big dude. Um, and he's a very good pass blocker. He gets in the way and kind of like Mitch, not to the same extent, but those big dudes that's just going to be a flaw. They're going to have problems against the guys that line up wide and are going to try to speed them. That's just, it's just hard for big guys to get moving coordinatedly like a dancing bear. It's just hard. But other than that, if he can use his girth to just get between you and the quarterback, he's going to be all right. And if he gets his hands on you, you got a problem. His problem is going to be getting that big body moving forward in the run game. That was something that Mitch was as a big dude, he kind of had a basketball player's build in that way that he was able to fire out, and he was pretty athletic for a big guy in the run game, which is kind of funny that athleticism didn't translate in pass blocking at all because those quick guys just gave him fits. So that's been better than expected, and then Burford looks better. Banks looks pretty good. I don't, Brindle is Brindle, and Trent is Trent. But Trent he holds that whole thing together, and you replace him with Pryor or Moore, and that's pretty scary. It's a pretty for any length of time. That's a pretty scary proposition.
Yeah. All right. Is there anyone else you wanted to mention before we end the show talking about our guy Nick?
No.
All right.
I guess honorable mention to Latu. He's had a pretty rough camp and he had a pretty good day yesterday.
Yeah. No, he did. He made the important catch in the end zone, and yeah, he yeah. I was making a joke in the Discord about how because of all the negative comments that he's getting from Barrows, and Barrows is at this point, Barrows is just like, yep, another drop. I was just like, man, can we call this early in the training camp someone a bust? But it's just because when you're a tight end and they need you to catch balls and you're just dropping them in practice, you're just like, what's going on? But it's a transition of becoming a pro, and he's probably thinking of 100 things, and then the one that should be the most instinctual is the one that he just takes for granted and has to go back to the basics. So I was very happy to see him make those catches too.
I think what bodes well for him is being a rookie with making so many mistakes that he's still getting opportunities, which bodes well for him. That he doesn't appear to be in the doghouse, which it seems like is not hard to do with Kyle. He's still running him out there and giving him targets. So it's good. It was good for him to see for him to pay that off.
Yeah, totally. All right, let's talk about Nick. We'll end this episode talking about him because obviously he, by his absence, he is. It is very apparent that he is not there now. If he was there, he may not even play in these games. But in the Athletic, in today's little reporting, Matt Barrows wrote, "Is the clock ticking for a Nick Bosa extension?" And he is referencing a conversation that he had with John Lynch, and he, saying, how long did you need before you could get ready for the season? And John Lynch said, this is John Lynch's quote, "I needed 3 weeks. I needed that to get ready. And so I don't know what the right time period for Bosa is. We've talked a lot about it internally, but I think that it's important to give yourself the best chance to not only play at the highest level, but to stay healthy and get yourself primed and ready, calloused to play. Like that's his big word is calloused. They need to build up the calluses and the hits and all of that stuff to be ready. So we are 3 weeks out from the opening season for the Niners playing in Pittsburgh. Who has the leverage here? I can't imagine a player necessarily has the leverage unless they're just willing to hold out for the entire season. And I'm not sure that is the case here, but I also don't think that there's real worry yet. You probably don't get really worried until, the beginning of that last week before the season starts. But by Nick holding his ground, he does create whatever leverage that you can have. He does create that by not being here. But are you worried about Nick yet?
I'm not worried yet, but you referenced in a segment that we did on Nick about a month ago, the Emmitt Smith holdout.
Yes.
And we can say that he's under contract and he doesn't really have any leverage. I can guarantee you that this defense is going to look a whole lot different if we line up week 1 and Nick Bosa is not at right end and it's Cleveland Farrell or Austin Bryant or whoever the hell else is over there. You can believe that his presence will be missed. And then that's where a player's, and now if we start running off wins, but even then though, I think our front office is smart enough to know that even if we get off on a hot streak, that's fool's gold. Nick Bosa, the only stat that really that jumps out to me, and you could talk about the difference one player makes, yada yada. I get that. But Nick Bosa has been here 3 years, 4 years, and we've been to the NFC Championship 3 of those years. And the one
Yes.
that we weren't there, he was injured. So, I mean, he is legitimate. When you talk about the top of the food chain players in the NFL, he is right up there in whatever you want to say, top 4, top 5, top 10 difference makers in this league. In a league of special athletes, there's a, like Dion talks about, with the Hall of Fame, we need to have another tier
The
of
pyramid style, yeah.
of Hall of Famers. When you talk about elite players and then elite players, Nick Bosa is in that tier of a handful of game record type of guys. And you can, talk that next man up and all of that. You don't replace a Nick Bosa. You just don't. I mean, you don't.
The thing that Rod was referencing in the comment that I made, so I believe the year is 1993. So
Mhm.
Dallas Cowboys win the Super Bowl, their first, the young team, this is the Troy, Emmett, and Michael Irvin, when they finally got over the hump. And Emmett held out the first 2 weeks of the season. Those first 2 weeks of the season, the defending Super Bowl champions went into Washington and lost 35-16. Then they had a home game against the Buffalo Bills and lost 13-10. Emmett was signed that next week, and they reeled off 7 straight victories and then eventually won the Super Bowl again. So that is the kind of impact that I think that Nick has. So, whatever he is willing to do to hold out, whatever the 49ers are trying to figure out, I don't even know what the dollar amount difference would possibly be between the two parties, because they basically said that they're pretty confident that that they're going to work it out. Like we haven't heard from the 49ers side yet that there is any worry. So I don't know exactly, what the possible problem is. One, obviously it's, Nick wants more money than the Niners are willing to give him at this point, but we don't know how far apart they are. We haven't heard any of that information. So, I mean, I hope it doesn't get there, because, if you're Kyle and you finally have the roster, and look, this is a fantastic roster. They've had fantastic rosters. It's almost like there's almost so many weapons that Kyle probably feels like, man, I'm a very lucky guy here with the roster we put together. But there's always a hitch. It could be injury. It could be something like this. It could be a holdout. It could be an off the field thing that screws up some of the chemistry. And these dream seasons, a lot of the times that the dream seasons happen is because for whatever reason, everything just works out the way that you always want it to work out. So this is a little bit of a hitch. The Brock thing could have been a hitch, but it looks like it's going to be okay. We'll see what happens, but I just hope that the 49ers understand that, there is a possibility for this to be a special, special team. And I think the fan base, when is the last time that you've been this excited about a team? Probably
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's
I
been a
mean,
long time.
even I would probably go back to 2012 because that 2011 team was a little unexpected. And then we're like, oh, okay, 2012. And 2012 was a fantastic season. It didn't end the way that we wanted it, but that was, the best team probably since then.
Yeah.
So I think
Because I
this
wasn't
could be
expecting the 2019 team,
no.
and then the COVID year was kind of a weird year.
Yeah.
So 21 wasn't like I didn't have, a bunch, I
The Niners had to win a lot of games in the second half of that season to even make the playoffs in that
yeah.
2021.
So yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I think so. And then I'm just couple things there I want to pick your brain on is, the social aspect of this type of commentary aside, we saw, how Debo went about his holdout. And you can, I'm not getting into that commentary of the unprofessional and diva and all the cancerous and all the weird shit you fans was out here talking about.
Well, what
And
was the news that he unfollowed the 49ers Instagram page or
and
whatever?
that's unprofessional somehow. I mean, okay, whatever. But I think it bears questioning if Nick held in like JT Watt did, just came and did his work on the side and was, doing media availability every day and talking about it and in the press every day and just here does is he signed by now? If I'm not saying he's even made a mess or said anything negative, the fact that he is just, um, you know, 0 dark 30, it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind, and there's no real pressure to get anything done. And there really is and I guess from if I'm his team, um, I'm going to be the highest paid player in the league. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
or defensive player in the
Defense
league. I
player
mean,
in the league.
yeah, there. So there's really, I mean, I guess that's why I can take this stance. I don't really have to go out here and stomp or campaign to get my money. But I just wonder if he had just a little bit more of a higher profile, would there be any more pressure on the 49ers to come to the table than there already is? Think so, but what do I know? What do you think?
Well, the other thing that we're not even thinking about, right, is his leverage is in getting the deal done now, because if he just plays this season, next year the Niners can just tag him, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So he wants the deal so that he doesn't have to go through a lot of the nonsense that some of these other players get, where they just get tagged and have to play on that 1 year for, whatever the top 10%, I forget what the average is. So to me, that's what this is really about, which is, hey, if this is going to be 4 or 5 years, he wants those terms dictated for him so that, the tagging system that still exists in the NFL and doesn't really exist anywhere. Baseball has their own version of that, but that, I think that's really what it's about, is he wants the ability, like you said, to not only be the highest paid player, but also what's going to happen is he's going to sign his deal. And then the next guy's going to be like, I want more than Nick. And then the next guy's going to go, I want more than that guy that just got more than Nick. And so by the time, after 2 years, Nick's not going to be the highest paid player anymore. He's going to be the 5th highest paid player. And then you have this relationship with the team to be like, hey, let's redo this. And if I'm still, if I'm possibly going after Strahan every year, I should be paid in that way. So I think it's really about the relationship. It's really about him sort of setting the precedent with them, saying, this is what I bring to the table. And how is not only this year, but sort of the future of our negotiations going to happen? How you're going to show me now how you feel about me. And that's going to tell me a lot about how you're going to handle me in 3 or 4 years. He's still really young, so he doesn't really have to worry about, when he gets 30 or whatever. Like, that's still a little bit away for him. But I really think that that's what this is about, which is for the star player to be like, I need to set this precedence early, because by the way this TV money is going, I'm going to be underpaid in 2 years, and I want that ability to then renegotiate and be paid the value that I really deserve.
And that's the tricky thing for both parties, because if I'm Nick's agent, I'm gonna put my CAA agent on hat on, and I'm gonna say, okay, check it. You guys, I understand 24 is gonna be, a crucible year for you guys and your cap. That's fine. We can negotiate. We can structure it in such a way to give you some relief there.
Yeah.
Wait, why don't we do this? Why don't we make him the highest paid player? We may give him the highest bonus ever, and then let's just do a 3-year deal. And then at 28, I'm not saying I don't say that to them, but from my okay, then I'm at 28 and I get another bite at the apple, and we eliminate all of that you just said, that the market resets, and then I'm sitting here on a 5-year deal that is obsolete. If I'm the 49ers, I don't know that I want to play that game. I don't know that I want to be going with Nick Bosa 2 or 3 years at a time.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to make him the highest paid player, I but I'm not I don't know what Jed's pocketbooks are doing. I don't know if Jed can do like Jimmy Haslam did and just write a check to put Deshaun Watson's money in escrow, because Pilot J it pays a little different than whatever the hell little side businesses that Jed has. We've already mentioned that Jed is a billionaire, but his billionaire is different than like the Waltons billionaire
Yeah.
is, where their store receipts for this month could cover
Yeah.
Nick Bosa's could cover his contract. So they're not tripping on that. So I don't know how much of that is, you know, the 49ers hesitance or even outright inability to, maybe they just don't have the ready cash to be able to pay the kind of money that it's gonna, and I know that Parag is one of the best in the business that he does, and they can, people who are way smarter than me tell me that there are ways to break the bonus up into 2 or even 3 payments to make it, more team friendly. But he gets his money. But I would think that the 49ers, from the outside looking in, I would think they would be pushing for the longer deal as opposed to the shorter deal, because defensive ends, unlike somebody like Debo, where at 28, it's neither here nor, it's up in there. It's a coin flip as
I
to
mean,
what
which
his
was
value.
probably why they were comfortable going 3
Right.
years.
It's a coin flip that will Debo be the player he is now 3 years from now? No, I don't. Maybe not. But barring some catastrophic injury, I don't see, which I mean is that's the you can't be not making deals with any player if the fear is a catastrophic injury, because let's face the facts. I mean, it's more inside baseball that any fan really cares about, but that contract is insured. So if he is catastrophically injured, it'll mess up your salary cap, but you're not gonna go broke off of
Yeah,
that money.
and
You're gonna get
just remember, a lot of these contracts get so blown up. For the quarterbacks now, though, almost all of their money
is
can be
guaranteed.
guaranteed. But for these other positions, the only thing that really matters is the guarantee.
And and to be fair to the 49ers, his guarantee is going to be massive.
Yeah,
It's
it's
there's no
gonna be
there's
big.
no two ways around that. It's going to be the largest guarantee of any non-quarterback in NFL history. So it's not going to be an insignificant amount of money, no matter how you slice it. But I would think, you know, cap be damned. I would rather bite the bullet on that and try to finesse that rather than being in the business of going, every 2 or 3 years with
Yeah,
that. Because I guarantee you, the defensive end market, like the quarterback market, it ain't going backwards. And Nick
but it's
Bosa,
also for them, and it again, it is relationship because Nick and his agent may want to be like, "Hey, you know, this is a 5-year deal, but we want to be able to come back to the table and say, this is
mhm,
what it is, and this is where the money is. Now, we need to take care of this." But that's a lot of that is the relationship
right.
between the parties, and so that's what
Oh
I'm
yeah,
hoping is the piece that is actually getting taken care of right now. Is like, okay, how are we going to how are we going to work on this thing to make it so that Nick is going to be happy playing for the contract that he's going to
right.
sign, not only for this upcoming season, but in 3 years?
How does the how I would I'm not in those rooms, and I've never been in those rooms, but I've negotiated contracts before, and I know that probably where we're at is the team is trying to have some sort of cost certainty moving forward. The player wants as much flexibility moving forward as possible. So I want either a short contract or I want a longer contract with some opt outs. That I'm even willing, if I'm a player, I'm willing to even buy opt outs at year 3. If I give back X amount of money, I can then, you know, opt out because that is, flexibility is king. Because as you say, the salary cap is not doing going anything up but up. The defensive end market is not going to be doing going anywhere but up. So as a player, I want as much flexibility as possible, and the team wants as much cost certainty as possible. And so it's where, as the old saw says, a great contract negotiation in a great contract negotiation, both parties leave feeling like they didn't get everything that they wanted, but they're, happy with what they got. And hopefully we're able to get there. The discourse in a lot of these a lot of these sites are like he doesn't have any leverage and he's just going to play this contract out. I mean, let me tell you, man, he can hold out up to week 6, come back week 6, and still be fully vested for this year. I just can't see how the 49ers how it benefits them going into next year. Um, how you'd want to even how you'd even want to consider playing the franchise tag game with Nick Bosa. The relationship, like you said, aside, if you're gonna be in any kind of cap situation, how in the hell can you have a defensive end cap number hitting the whole cap? I don't even see how that's even feasible. And to also field a competitive roster, it just that would be disastrous for them for his cap number next season to be the full franchise tag. I just don't think I don't see from there, so in my opinion, that is a part of, that's a leverage angle that he has as the player. It's okay, fine. Let's go ahead and do that. I'll play it out. But I just don't see how the team is able to do that. So we'll see.
Kyle,
I don't think he plays on that. And I think they find a way to get him extended. And I don't. And I also don't believe he's going to hold out for a whole long time either. So I think something gets done. He shows up, prior to week 1. I don't know this. I'm guessing. I don't have any inside information. I don't know anybody down there in Santa Clara. But just
You know who
it
he
just
needs?
it just
He needs Hammer.
well, I'm sure Crabtree could hook him up.
We need
Yeah.
the liaison. We need Hammer to be the
Mhm.
liaison between the two teams or the two parties. The other thing is that Kyle is a major decision maker when it comes to the personnel. So he's like, guys, he has influence there. So I would imagine that also is something that he's being really vocal about. He wants everyone to do their job, but he is a major decision maker when it comes to roster. So that
But
has
you
got
know
to
what? He
be
has said famously that he tries to stay out of that stuff, and only a few occasions where he has butted his head into that room. I know he
this
said
should be one of
George
them.
was one of those situations where he was like, "Look, guys, this dude is our best offensive player. We need to go ahead and get this done." And
Yeah,
like you
Jim,
say,
Jimmy doesn't want to throw to anybody else. We need
right.
George.
You know, so this, like you say, and if there was ever a situation where he would stick his head in the room and say something to Parag, I would think this would be one of them. I mean,
Absolutely.
we've got to have this guy. He really is. Again, like I said earlier, he is one of those guys in this league who tilts the field. He is a difference maker, and
Absolutely.
our team looks different if he's not out there.
All right, so for next week, I believe you said because the Niners play Friday night, and I think you said that you were going to have some issues with next week's schedule.
So
So,
here's the thing. I'm gonna share it with our audience
oh,
because
there
you
we go.
guys are like part of my family. I was gonna talk to you off air, but I am going to Africa.
Oh,
I
wow,
am I
fantastic!
am I'm doing the Lombardi trip. I'm going to Tanzania and Zanzibar. So I'm doing a safari
Wow,
and I'm gonna hang out on the beach. And so I'm leaving Saturday. So I could do something Friday. So I'll be available Friday. I thought that the game was Saturday. So Friday I'm available. So
okay,
Friday is a go whenever. But I am interested in doing something around free agency. So around what we were just talking about earlier, the drop deadline and whatnot. We don't have to do it live. We kind of do it like we did last time. Maybe if
hmm
I can get a solid internet connection over there,
sure,
maybe we can do something. We can just record something and then you can post it in bits and pieces or as a
yep,
whole thing. And we can do that because I really want to talk to you guys, even if it's just virtually about the goings on around our 53-man roster. So me and Double G will, um, I hope set something up if if it works in his schedule.
absolutely.
With him running this network and got a billion things going on, and even moonlighting out on other networks. He is like a mogul. So I really like, um, all bullshit aside, I really do respect your hustle and what you're doing, and I feel on a pleasure to be a small part of it. So
I
yeah,
got I got a lot of support. I got a lot of
yeah.
support. My wife knows that this is something I really enjoy, and we make the schedule work, so I can do a lot of this stuff. Okay, so we'll do the show Friday night after 49ers Chargers. So we'll put that we'll schedule that stream, and then we'll have the podcast the next morning, and then yeah, we'll just work whatever you want to do. If we can get if you can get a good signal, and we can do something around when the roster cuts happen and who's going to be on that team. So and we can talk about that after next week when you're all
Yep,
settled
yep.
on your vacation.
Mhm. Yep.
All right.
Thanks a lot, you guys.
All
Man,
right.
this is a pleasure, man. You guys are the best.
All right. I know that was a little bit on the long-ish side, but preseason game number 2, we only got 3 to talk about. So we had to get through a lot of stuff. I hope folks enjoyed it. For Rod, I am Double G. We will see you when we see you. Peace out.